Response video to Piro video, Modern Mystic. But I'm going to just bend it a little to my own direction. This idea of game theory or what game matters kind of thing is sort of a useful metaphor, I think, to understand that most of what we do is most of the economy of our lives. One could argue, I think fairly, is that it's some sort of zero sum in its foundation, like worrying about who wins the World Series. It just really doesn't matter. There's very little. There might be some likelihood that there's a maximum best result, like the most people are made happy and the fewest people are made sad by who ends up winning. And that certainly you could construct it with some drama, like some heroic figure does some heroic thing and it makes it more exciting and so that more people are pleased by the experience. But basically it's just bullshit. Who cares? This isn't important. It's only important because people have become attached to it for some whatever, nonsensical, stupid, kind of ignorant reason that they think this crap is important. They certainly could think some other kind of crap is important. And some might argue that it's all crap, but I would argue that it's not all crap, that being in a contest to cure cancer or something, or to in some other way liberate people from some, encumbrance that does matter, some better painkiller, let's just say, would certainly be a help. A better antibiotic would be a help. Certain things that are just on balance going to create more comfort than discomfort in the world tomorrow, and that would be a good thing. More people comfortable, less people uncomfortable, and that's really the game that matters. So that's what I want to get to, is that Piro said it's an infinite number of little games. No, and he said there is no one game, one big game. Well, no, there is one big game. You got it exactly backwards, and all the little games we play are the ones that don't matter, the ones that are irrelevant, that most of the time are zero sum, and I would argue they're negative sum in the sense that for the existence of football, there's a huge amount of casualties because people need this entertainment and haven't chosen a better entertainment. I mean, just think if you could migrate people to some other contest to watch. You wouldn't have to cripple all those kids. You wouldn't have all these, disaffected lives, all these inflated egos, all the damage that's done to us socially by having these anything close to these idiotic gladiator wars, idiotic contests for people to watch, contests that produce absolutely nothing, a goal. Somebody kicks a ball through into a frickin' net. That's their goal. That's the score. Yeah, there's no value in that. The human being can't eat that. A human being can't sleep on that. There's people in Indonesian prisons right now that can't do a damn thing with that. It would have been better if their goal scored was to get them out of that shithole or to give them some comfort, instead of watching a stupid ball go across some perimeter. So yeah, these games we play are insidiously stupid. But there is one game. There's one game that we are playing, and it's the game of the sentient welfare. The fact is that there are categories. There's two categories that sentience can be in: comfortable and uncomfortable, suffering or some bliss, if you want to use the extreme words. And they're not opposites of each other. Okay, one is the absence of the other. Discomfort is created by applying a burden, and comfort is created by releasing the burden. So I could use the example of somebody winning the lottery. Now, in theory, it's just a thought. It's just an idea. I won. Okay? There's no physical thing that takes place. There's no anything. The money isn't even in their hands. But the understanding, just the understanding that they won the lottery, will put them in a euphoric state, because they will understand how much of their burdens, their worries, have been annihilated. Their worries have been blown out of existence, and they are now liberated. A sense of huge liberation is what they are euphoric about, because they have been released from these tedious, awful burdens of existence. And that's just the fact. So just the idea of burden relief, just it's like understanding that there's a being in pain and understanding that there's a pain reliever just 50 feet away, and all I have to do is walk over there and I'll be relieved of my pain. It creates all kinds of hope and you know, it changes the entire circumstance for the sentient creature because of the burden release. And so that's what needs to be understood by people, is that your burdens aren't necessarily physical. You're not necessarily being pinched into suffering. You're being burdened by psychological knowledge, by realizing your vulnerability, by being afraid like a hyena. So now back to the modern mystic, making some, I don't think will be useful or fruitful, comparison between what part of our existence, our life, is instinct and what part is the something else, the understanding, the learning, the modification. And I don't think it's a useful question because they're two different things. The instinct is what creates the desire. It creates the capacity to accept burden, to understand burden, to feel burden. What we end up burdened by, what we end up desiring, how we end up acquiring what we desire, that's going to be all about how you are maturated, how you are conditioned, and then how you are educated. I mean, conditioned, educated. These are the steps you go through in your life. As a child, you are conditioned, you are programmed in terms of certain dispositions, mannerisms. Miss Manners thing sort of is acquired. You acquire a certain judgment and taste in life. Your preferences sexually, food, lots of ways will be established through that maturation. So you'll have these conditioned biochemical responses that will be learned in that process. And then as you grow older, further, you'll acquire knowledge of how the system works. And now your behavior will be modified substantially by those understandings, by understanding what your vulnerabilities are and what your strengths are and your talents are. And understanding those things will change your reactivity substantially. It'll give you immunity to some things you are innately afraid of or even conditioned to like, and you will fight against that conditioning. Try to modify it where you can. And that's what knowledge allows you to do. So asking the question, what percentage, is kind of idiotic, because it's the instinct that establishes the need, and it is the experience and education that defines the how you satisfy the need. So in everything you do, there's going to be a mixture of both once you're an adult. So it's a silly question because you can't really parse the two. They're two different things. The thing that creates hunger and the thing that creates what you're hungry for are two different mechanisms. Just no point in trying to parse them. So anyway, dismissing that nonsense and getting back to the real subject. So there is this one game, and the game is burden relief in the end. Suffering is the real value. The negative is the first force. And the game is really just eliminating as much of the negative as possible. Some are going to argue, I'll even argue, that some of the negative has to exist for there to be any motivation to do anything. So you always have to have some hunger, some desire, some projection that I need to get from here to there. And so that has to exist for you to exist, period, as a consciousness. Or you'll just sit in nothing. If you don't need anything, you'll be very comfortable, very blissful, but you'll not be a living thing anymore. And ideally, the best gameplay is to get as many sentiences to a substantial level of comfort, where they're not panicked, where they're not highly motivated, they're just sufficiently motivated. the bare minimums of motivation, and the maximums of deriving comfort through that minimalistic amount of motivation. So you put in as little discomfort, a burden, to create necessity to do, and then create as big a reward for the doing as is possible, and that's the net game. That's the best game we can play. That scores the most goals with the least losers and the most winners, and you know, by all measurements of the dynamic, there's the greatest victory in playing the game that way. The game, the sentient life existing game, and that is a big important game. So this is another category: important, unimportant. So we can put all this drama, the soap operas, the stupid idiotic arguments, all the dumb idiotic, you know, who cheated on who did this, who did that, all this bullshit can all go in that unimportant category. This was a dawdle, a waste of time. You know, they're wasting time arguing about the meaning of dawdle in the comments section. I mean, this is how fucking useless people are. You know, fuck. So you can put all that in the waste, and the only one that's important is this net suffering, net discomfort equation. And in the end, the game itself has no function until you create something vulnerable. So you have to create the needing machine for there to be necessity to play any game whatsoever. But once you're going to play the game, once you're going to create the sentient and have a game, there is a frickin' rational, logical, best case scenario way to play it. There's a way to play it to gain the most out of it and invest the least amount of negative in it. And that's called being productive, and it's a real game. That it's the real game in the sense that there isn't going to be somebody to declare the winner. Adolf Hitler is going to stand in the stands and go, he won. I mean, some kind of bullshit like that. There's not going to be something declaring winners and losers. They'll just be winners and losers. And their existence in and of themselves will define what it is. It doesn't need somebody to declare it. It is what it is. A person, a human being sitting in a crowded cell, dying, is a reality. It is what it is. It doesn't need anybody to sit there and point to it and say, there. No, it is. Okay? It doesn't need anybody to say, write it in a book somewhere, a man is sitting in a cell dying. Nobody needs to write it down. It's a negative all by itself. It's happening. It's there. It's real. And it doesn't need to be in a record book somewhere to be a fact and to be in this net endgame solution. So you as an individual either have a productive impact on the world or you will have a negative impact on the world. You will make the more people in the future, more sentient creatures in the future suffer more, or you'll make them suffer less. You'll create more need in the world, more chase, more desire, more running, or less. That's just a fact. You'll either suck or you won't suck. Period. And it doesn't need to be declared by me. Doesn't need to be declared by a God. Doesn't need to be said by the universe that you suck. You will just suck. Period. You will be unproductive. You know, again, if I have a car and the car doesn't start, I don't need to say the car won't start. It's just a fact. The car is now no longer a useful car because it won't start. It won't run. It won't move. It's just a fact. Alright. So anyway. Yeah, I'll keep it short. I mean, I think that says it, right? I mean, there is a game here, though. This is the meaning game. This is the crying game is the game. The game of sentience is the game. Suffering is the game. Burden is the game. And the game is to get rid of that crap. And the truth nobody wants to hear is the easiest way to get rid of it is just to turn the key. Just to not make it. Don't turn it on. Sentience is all it produces is losers in the end. There's no way to win except relative from your negative position. There's only burden relief, like winning the lottery. Winning the lottery isn't, hey, I did something more. No, it's getting rid of your less. It's getting rid of your burden. And let's not lie. That's what makes you happy, is your liberty, your freedom from your poverty. Nothing else. Alright, anyway, till next time.